Well, this past year has brought some of the largest, longest, most destructive wildfires in California history. And to get a better understanding of where we are today and what California's leaders are doing to prevent these megafires, the ABC 10's Originals team has a new series out. It's called California Wildfires: The New Normal. It's an inside look at how destructive these fires are and what's next for the wildfire fight. ABC 10's Brandon Rittiman is here this morning to tell us about this series and his experience as a reporter literally on the fire line for almost the past 15 years, you just told me.
Yeah.
And you were front and center, too, with the campfire. So give us an update, though, on the campfire right now. What's the latest on that?
So we're still at 85 fatalities, and there are just a handful of people listed missing right now. So the fatality count could change. The ongoing story there is going to be housing, trying to get people sort of fixed up for the coming years while this town attempts to rebuild.
Yeah, because this was like you and I were just chatting, too, off camera. A town was completely wiped out.
Yeah.
It was erased.
And
so this is just a beginning for some of these individuals when it comes to recovery and putting their lives back together.
It's going to be a long road, and for some people, they're not going to be able to rebuild things back up there. That's just the harsh reality of what we're looking at.
And this is what really made the campfire so unique, right? And give us a little more perspective on that, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in order to start understanding what happened in the campfire, you have to acknowledge that this was not a garden variety wildfire. In fact, it was a perfect storm and a direct hit all in one. And what I mean by that is you had fire in an area where there hadn't been rain for 6 months, pushed uphill by high wind. When it reached the crest of that hill, it was as wide as the town. And then the embers shot 3 miles out ahead because you had 60 to 80 mile an hour winds. So those embers landed pretty much everywhere in town all at once, millions of hot embers finding every crack and crevice that they could, every pile of pine needles that hadn't been tended to, every, windowsill. And they started all those buildings on fire. Once the buildings started to go, they started lighting the other buildings on fire, and what you see is what you get. It's something like 95% of the homes are lost, something like 80% of the businesses, including the Safeway. I mean, the Safeway shopping center burned down.
Is gone.
If you can, that's like defensible space is almost out the window at that point, if you can burn something with that big of a parking lot around it.
Oh, okay. And Brandon, you and I were talking too. This wildfire series is called The New Normal. Define that. Why are we calling it the new normal?
So the new normal is this idea that we've heard from California's leaders that we're strapping in for worsening wildfires going forward. And when you talk to the fire scientists, they'll tell you that's absolutely what they expect. That even if we flipped the script right now and started doing everything we could possibly do, the best practices to thin the forest, to try to mitigate fire danger, we're in for another 20 or 30 years of worsening fires before things start to get better because it's such a big problem.
What do our viewers do then? How do they protect themselves?
So right now, I would say we've spent a lot of time talking about defensible space. That's absolutely important. You should absolutely practice it on your home. That is what's going to get you the best chance in 99.9% of wildfires. The campfire was that 0.1%. And in that case, that's where you need to, go look outside and see what the fire is doing. This community was told to shelter in place until they were told to evacuate their zone, and then the warnings couldn't get to them. That's what the first episode of our series exposes. But when you have a black column of smoke that's making noon feel like nighttime, that's a warning sign.
So it sounds like it's more imperative than ever that our viewers become educated about wildfires, what the warning signs are, and how to make sure that you're protected. Very important to listen and pay attention to emergency services, but also there's that innate survival instinct.
Yeah, just know that warning may not reach you.
Okay, Brandon, thank you so much for this insight. People, you're going to learn so much more. Make sure you tune in tonight. Watch California Wildfires: The New Normal. It's on the late news tonight at 11 p.m. right here on ABC 10. You cannot afford to not see this.
This interview involves commercial content. The products and services featured appear as paid advertising.